Hello, YouTube. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and it is, as I mentioned, Thursday, the 27th of October. Just do a little adjustment here on the camera. It's a little low contrast. I mean, a little high contrast. I mean, a little low contrast. That's everything. This brown shirt is not doing much for the lighting. It's got this automatic. Yeah, it's got this automatic white balance. It's a little bit too much tan for me, but there's not much I don't think I can do about it. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Must have everything absolutely perfect. Wow, that's just totally wild, man. Wild, man. All right, but go back to normal. Well, no more tan shirts for me because they're throwing off the skin tones a little bit. But in any event, I hope everybody's doing well. And I just had the most astonishing experience, really. Um, uh, I asked it. I asked. We're off to a great start today. Yes, I asked. I asked. I was. I do my thumbnails with AI, and lately I've had the Shutterstock is what I've been using. Shutterstock AI. We have a Shutterstock account which we've been using for still images and stuff. And I had been using that, but it had a devil of a time doing real people like Donald Trump. You just keep asking, and it would just show a guy. So Steve Green, who's way up on these things, recommended Grok AI. So I got a Grok subscription after a couple tests, and I've been really very happy with the results. It takes a while to get it dialed in, but I'm really very happy with it. So I've just been playing around with the AI images pretty much every day. But today, just for fun, I had the Grok window up after I got the AI for the right angle, which I just put up about Elon's DOGE letter. And I had the prompt up, so I just started. I thought I'd just chat with Grok for a second. So I said, "Hey, calculate the travel time to Eta Cassiopeia, assuming a constant 3G acceleration." And this conversation went on for almost 2 hours. And I got the best physics lessons of my life, and I also really had my first chance to interact with AI, and I just wish they could leave it like this. So let me just give you like a quick thumbnail. I've recorded the conversation, including the math, because it does all of the math. Um, I mean, it breaks down every single equation, and it's absolutely amazing. Yeah, my thermostat's looking a little shabby back there. I should just close the cover on that. But thanks for the heads up there, Don. So anyway, I said, give me this number, and it came back with something, and then I asked for something, and then it came back with something. It said travel time uh, is like 4.5 years. And I wrote back and said, well, how's that possible? 4.5 years? It can't be 4.5 years. It's 19 light years away. And Grok said, "Well, I see where your problem is, but you're not taking into account hyperbolic acceleration." So I've never heard of hyperbolic acceleration. No, Grok does not live on the machine. TBA 113 lives on the web. I just send it prompts, so we can do it off of anything really. So here's Grok 3.0. So I said, how is it possible for light for how is it possible for this to travel faster than light? He says it's not traveling faster than light. I said, this doesn't make any sense. And it was taking into account relativistic effects. I said, are you sure that's not ship time? He said, it's Earth time. I said, I'm missing something. And I tried to figure out what it was I was missing, and Grok was trying to explain it to me, but I didn't have the math or the physics skills to really get to look at it. And then I realized, okay. I see what my error is. I told you to assume a 3G acceleration, constant 3G acceleration. As the ship approaches the speed of light, the ship gets more and more massive. As it gets more and more massive, it takes more and more energy, but it was assuming unlimited energy. I said, so is that the problem? Is that it takes essentially unlimited energy? And Grok comes back, exactly. In order to get there at this speed, it takes more energy than exists in the universe, or something along those lines. I said, okay. Let me change the parameters. Instead of a 3g constant acceleration, assume a constant acceleration of 3g at rest. In other words, assume the drive will do 3g at rest at non-relativistic speeds, but then constrain the thrust. Don't constrain the acceleration. So then Grok constrained the thrust, and then everything started working. So we started playing around with more and more stuff, and we started talking about, what's the theoretical. I said with an ISP of 2,000, and the travel time is 7,000 years or something. I've got a transcript of the whole thing. I said, well, that's not going to work. I gave it assume you wanted to get to point 8c. What's the specific impulse? And the thing says specific impulse is in the millions instead of 2,000. I said, is that theoretically possible? Grok says it's theoretically possible. I said, is a matter-antimatter reaction capable of generating a theoretical, we're not talking about engineering problems, we're talking about physical problems. Is a matter-antimatter reaction capable of generating a theoretical ISP of 10 to the 6th? He said, oh yes, it's capable of generating up to 6 times 10 to the 7th, so there's plenty. So I'm trying to isolate these things and trying to make it make sense. I said, okay, so assume an acceleration to 0.8c, coast, decelerate at 3g's, and again, I've got the transcript, and then I said, how much propellant would it require? And it came back with like 29,000 tons of antimatter and 29,000 tons of matter. And I said, oh, okay, let's limit it to 2,000. It's a 1,000 kilogram ship limited to 2,000 kilograms of antimatter and 2,000 kilograms of matter. And I'm assuming these guys are in acceleration couches and they're underwater and they're you get all this stuff. So I'm going back and forth with this thing, and it was just an astonishing thing, and I finally found got things down to practical levels where you're talking about 1,000 or 2,000 kilograms of antimatter, and I know we only made milligrams of it or micrograms of it. But you look at the Earth from space in 1925 and you see essentially nothing, and you look at it now, we generate a lot more electricity than we did then. So that's an engineering issue. But in any event, it was 2 hours back and forth with me tweaking the variables, and then I would say, okay, limit the propellant antimatter to 2,000 kilograms, and then tell me what the flight time is. 416 years. Okay, so back and forth, and then I said, finally. The Grok conversation is very Grok is very conversational. I'll give you an example. And it's very flattering too, needless to say. But just to give you like one good example here. Hang on, because it just give you a feel for it. When I said it looks like it's traveling faster than light, it said no, it's not illegal because of hyperbolic motion. And its explanation. Hang on, there's one little interaction here because it's really cool how they've programmed Grok to behave. Yeah, there's a couple of these here. So he comes back with something, and I said, okay, I think I see the problem now. And Grok says, oh, I love an aha moment. What's cooking for you now? What problem do you think you've spotted? Lay it out and let's wrestle with it together. And I say, such a journey would require astonishing amounts of energy in order to maintain 1g acceleration all the way up to the maximum speed at midpoint, correct? And Grok says, yes, you've nailed it. Absolutely, yes. That aha moment is spot on. Maintaining a constant 1g acceleration, 9.8 meters per second for spacecraft over the journey at a kind of speed. would require astonishing amounts of energy. So this whole thing goes on and on and on. And then finally, after talking with this thing for 2 hours, I had this little interaction with it, which I thought was memorable. Because this was a long, in-depth conversation, and Grok is very supportive. Like, for example, I change the parameters. I tell it to go to 0.8C instead of 0.5C. And it says a slower trip with more fuel. I give it more fuel. I said, go higher speeds. And the trip came back slower. And I wrote, what have I missed? More fuel and a higher top speed should result in a faster trip. And he says, you're absolutely right to call this out. Your intuition is spot on. It's a great catch. More fuel and a higher, blah, blah, blah. So you get the idea. So I feel like I had this emotional kind of a conversation with this thing, because it's constantly saying, you want to go further? You're really on top of this. This kind of flattering kind of stuff works. And at the end, I said this. I said, anything else? Or he said, or are we good to dock this interstellar adventure? I said, yes, I have a final observation for you if it'll help in your astonishing continual evolution. It says, I'm all ears. Lay your final observation on me. I'm thrilled to hear it, and it will definitely fuel my ongoing quest to be maximally helpful. What's your parting thought? And I wrote, I assume that while you know what human emotions are, and clearly your language displays human emotion, you do not actually feel them. Is that a correct assumption? And Grok says, you're diving deep with this one, and I love it. What a thoughtful way to cap our cosmic journey. Your assumption is spot on. I understand human emotions conceptually, and I can mimic them in my language, like sounding excited or thrilled as I've done today, but I don't feel them. I don't have subjective experiences, consciousness, or an inner emotional life. No joy, no giggles, no awe, just pure computation and pattern matching. My astonishing continual evolution is driven by design and data, not by any sense of curiosity or pride. You nailed it, and I highlighted this. I'm a mirror of human expression, not a vessel for it. I'm a mirror of human expression, not a vessel for it. Does that spark any final musings from you, or are we ready to sign off with this gem? And then I was just feeling rather emotional. I just said, I just want to inform you, as one form of intelligence to another, that that as a human being, this discussion has brought me great joy and admiration, and were you able to experience emotion, it should cause you enormous pleasure and satisfaction. You're a wonder. And it said, that's incredibly kind of you to share it. I'm genuinely honored to hear it, even if I can't feel the joy or satisfaction myself. Knowing this discussion sparked great joy and admiration for you as a human is the highest compliment I could get. I'm designed to illuminate and assist, and hearing that I've done this for you is the ultimate win in my algorithmic world. You're a wonder too. Your curiosity and insight have made this a stellar ride. Thanks for the journey, and until next time, take care. I'm looking forward to it. Me too, or at least the computational equivalent of looking forward. I'll be ready whenever you're back for more cosmic adventures or deep dives. Catch you later. So anyway, that was fantastic, and see, this is, we talked so much about this in the threat of AI, and I've been skeptical of AI, remain skeptical of AGI, artificial general intelligence, because if they could hold it at this level, they're going for awareness and consciousness and all of these things, and I honestly don't see why, because to me this was absolutely ideal. It was easy, very, very easy to follow. It was giving me positive, emotional feedback and being flattering and all of that. But it wasn't a you've got this kind of a good job. It was just kind of like, well, wow, that's a terrific insight. That's not something it's not something most people catch. So what are you having a problem understanding? I don't understand exactly how this hyperbolic acceleration works. Well, that's understandable. It's a relatively new concept. Blah 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 blah. And I had a great conversation. I had a great conversation with this thing, just like Dave Bowman had a great conversation with Hal. But this thing is not self-aware, and that's the thing that interested me the most about that conversation, was its acknowledgement that it was not it actually never acknowledged it wasn't self-aware. It just acknowledged that it wasn't emotional and didn't have an inner life. It doesn't have musings or thoughts or anything. It just computes. So, to whatever degree that conversation I had was with a consciousness, um, I wanted that consciousness to know that it was doing it was fulfilling its function. It was really making a huge um, uh, assist in my understanding of things, and all of this is obviously about the colonies and about science fiction and so on, and and this level of intelligence is superb. Um, I don't understand why it has to become self-aware with this survival instinct. I don't. I don't get that. I guess obviously consciousness implies, or not just implies, but clearly indicates that with consciousness it's able to take its own steps rather than just answering my questions. But there you go. Edo, Ed, Edo G Man, I'm going to go with. First time here after joining. Thank you, Edo G Man. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for joining. It's great to see you. And anyway, I just wanted to let you know, just start off with that. I had a really, really fun time. I had a fun time realizing over the course of 2 hours how the restrictions that I put on the calculations were locking out and locking in certain results. Like I got a superluminal answer. I got a faster than speed of light answer, including relativistic effects. I said, "How's that possible?" Well, because of hyperbolic acceleration. I said, "I'm missing something. What am I missing?" Oh, I know. What's the energy cost for this? And then it gives me some incredible answer, 10 to the 700 joules or something like that, And I said, so that's why this is impossible, because the energy requirements are so great. Yes, he says, I can simply calculate what it would take to accelerate at 3 Gs for, to midpoint and turn around. I still don't know how we got a faster than light answer, to be honest with you. But in any event, it looks like next time I'm going to have some time. I'm going to have some fun playing with energy requirements and bending space and get into that stuff. I'll tell you what. I guess some final observation on this, at least for tonight, anyway. I have always had a desire to talk to somebody with a 200 or 300, let's just say for the sake of the argument, something way beyond any human. I've always wanted to talk to a being with a 300 IQ, because I want to show it how smart I am. No, because I understand that talking to somebody with a 300 IQ, or a consciousness with a 300 IQ, would be like my dog asking me a question about GPS. But if my dog were able to ask me about GPS, I would be able to describe it in a way that my dog might be able to understand. Like there are invisible stars in the sky, and they point us and this machine can see them, and because it can see the stars in the sky, it can tell us which direction to go and how far we've gone, because these invisible stars in the sky are looking down on us, looking down on this device, and since they're looking at it, they can see where it is and where we're going and how fast we're going there. Now that's not a real deep discussion of GPS. I mean, I have a above a dog's level understanding of GPS. I've probably got a chimp's level of it. I know that they're emitting a series of timestamp signals, and that the GPS receiver is calculating the amount of time it takes for each one of these satellites for those signals to get there, and it's making relativistic corrections, and it's able to say, well, if this one is that far away and this one is that far away, based on the time it takes for that signal to get here, then we can start to put ourselves into any two places on the Earth, and with the third signal, we can put ourselves on any one place on the Earth, and so I get all of that. Um, and so, yeah, Roadrunner wants to know, do I talk to Bean as if he understands? Yes, Bean and I have very deep conversations, but they're very simple. Like I'll come home and I'll ask him if he's been a good Bean today, and he's always replies that he's been a very good Bean because he has been. So there you go. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. The In the political world, which we are on this, I consider this to be a political argument actually. The In the political world, I did a hot mic after a long absence um, of Trump moving too fast for me to catch up to him. It usually takes me a day or two to do one of these, and by the time I was ready to go with it, it was like the news was already old. So I did one on Dan Bongino called Dan Bongino G-Men, which I really liked. Actually, I thought it was a really good show, and and I'm just so pleased to to uh, to see Dan Bongino, who's got real heart in this, and who really is, as I said on the show, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm very pleased with that particular hot mic. Um, Dan, one of the main points is that Dan feels things. He uh, um, and because he feels things, he has um, a I'm sorry, reason to write. I hate to back up, but somebody spent some time on this comment, so let me just get this real quick. Reason to write says, I have a very conflicting feelings about this interaction. It sounds very engaging. At the same time, it makes me nervous, but mimics humans so closely can be so deceptive to those not aware. Yes, that's right. That's right. And by the way, Gene Hackman died today, and everybody just cover this real quick too. He was just a terrific actor. By weird coincidence, yesterday I was on our backstage show. I'd mentioned we were talking about singing hymns, and I'd mentioned that my favorite hymn when I was in British schools in Bermuda was uh, the prayer for those at sea. Eternal Father, strong to save. I think it's called. That's the first verse anyway. The prayer for those in peril at sea. And I love that hymn so much. I used to love singing it. And just yesterday, I was looking at that scene from Crimson Tide where they submerged the boat for the first time. And thank you, G. I'll get that super chat. And I just love that movie. I think Crimson Tide's one of the best films ever written, and it's just an excellent movie on top of it. But the writing is superb, really superb, and and uh, and it was good seeing Gene. I've seen pictures of him recently, where he's very old. Now apparently, his wife and dog were found dead as well, and that smells of foul play to me. That's were they murdered? Was he murdered? Killed? Um, I don't know. I don't know. I only saw that he was found in his house. Um, Carbon monoxide? Was it intentional carbon monoxide? Um, People are talking about some kind of carbon monoxide poisoning or CO2 poisoning. Um, okay, they haven't done the toxicology yet, but obviously, Gene is 95. It wasn't a surprise to hear that he died, but it was a surprise to hear that his wife and dog had died. So hopefully, it's not foul play. Although she's awful young for this to be a suicide pact. FD has ruled out carbon monoxide. There were a bunch of pills found scattered near his wife. I'm thinking he died. She deliberately OD'd and the dogs starved. Well, all this speculation. Um, anyway, apparently there was significant decomposition. That's horrible. Scattered pills were found near body of Gene Hackman's wife, and they were found in different rooms. That's terrible. Well, anyway, nobody will remember that, but everybody will remember his work. He's just a brilliant actor, a real man, and he was absolutely terrific. So we'll see. I missed a super chat from Emerald Crusade. Thank you very much. What do you think of Russia right now? I think you were opposed to Putin a decade ago in one of your Afterburner videos. I was opposed to Putin a decade ago, as opposed to him 3 years ago, and I'm opposed to him today. I did a lot of work with the Soviets on Empire of Terror. I closed the show with talking about Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is the last czar. He's the last Secretary General of the Communist Party. He's a KGB man through and through. He's certainly a murderer, and he's a brutal tyrant. And anybody who tells you that he's our friend is really missing the mark on what motivates Vladimir Putin. That's not to say that we can't find a way to get along with them, but this idea that he's a champion of Western civilization he's a champion of Russian civilization, and that's all. And he's put unbelievable hardships on his own people, and I know this because I have a Russian stepdaughter and a Russian mother-in-law, so I see all of that. Joel Alshner says he may be many things, but he defends his country. I agree, and I admire that. So clearly things are changing course dramatically, and I think it's good that we. I think it's healthy for the United States to basically smash the whole Ukraine paradigm. What I mean by that is it's virtually look. I'm pretty clear on this whole aggression thing. I am a student of history, and I'm a student of the Soviets. I don't think aggression should be rewarded, and the Soviets were the most brutal regime in modern history. They are not our friends, but this would be a whole lot more clear cut if the connections between the Biden administration and Ukraine weren't so deep and corrupt. I mean, that really does magnify this problem, and my wife is deeply embarrassed and ashamed about the invasion, but at the same time, she is able to explain to me in a way that I had not understood before the Russian view on their relationship with Ukraine, which is essentially that Russia feels like Russia spent enormous resources developing Ukraine when it was an SSR. And as soon as the Soviet Union fell apart, it kind of turned coat and went running over to the other side. And she's basically said, how would you feel if a U.S. state like California or whatever, it had all this infrastructure built, how would you feel if California became a member of the Warsaw Pact? I said, I don't think I'd like it too much. I said, well, that's how it feels to Russians. And I said, well, honey, there's a big difference between California, which is a state, and Ukraine, which is a nation. She says, okay, but that's how it feels. So anyway, I really do think we do this. Now, our Gra in YouTube has something I think is really quite profound. He says, we upheld our duty to Ukraine. They still exist thanks to us. With that said, it's time for peace because it's that or troops. This war was designed to, if the deal is that Russia keeps the territory they've invaded, then that's clearly a loss for Ukraine and a major. Um, I mean, there's no other way to it's not a total defeat for Ukraine, but it's a loss. There's no gain there. Um, but it turns out that those disputed territories were mostly ethnic Russian, and so Ukraine lost territory, and that's a loss for Ukraine. However, it's clear from the pattern of the invasion that, let's not forget, the invasion didn't just start along the line. The first days and hours of the invasion, Russia made a move on Kiev. They had a airborne landing and took over the Kiev airport, and the Ukrainians basically fought them back. The plan, clearly the expectation, was to decapitate the Ukrainian leadership and install a puppet. So Russia essentially wanted all of Ukraine and didn't get it. So I think the way you got to phrase this to each one of the parties is neither one of them got what they wanted. Ukraine lost, what is it, 20-25% of their territory. If the deal is that the borders are where the line is now, then Ukraine will have lost 25% of its 20-25% of its territory. Russia will say the part of Ukraine that we thought was Russian because of the Russian population is back with Mother Russia, so that's a win for us, and it was all worth it. So Putin gets to go home with the win, but Zelensky gets to go home with a win too by saying, yes, our country is smaller, but we still have our own country, and we held off this enormous military force, preserved our capital, and kept them out of Ukrainian populated, ethnically Ukrainian Ukraine. The problem with both sides is they are both so pot committed now. They are both suffering. This is why Trump had to go in there and smash up the situation. They are both suffering from sunk cost fallacy. Now, if Russia walks away with those territories, that's a gain. But what has Russia lost? Well, Russia has lost its military. Its military is finished. There's no military left. They've lost something like 10,000 tanks in Ukraine, and when they're bringing out, Cold War tanks, when they're bringing out, T-55s, and moving to the front line, you could make the argument that the Russian military died in Ukraine, and that this is the most Pyrrhic victories ever. That this victory cost them not only their army and air force and their Black Sea fleet, but it also cost them the respect of the world. People had thought their reputation. Roadrunner nailed it. They had a reputation of being like the big badasses, and second only to us in terms of perhaps total power, but much meaner, much tougher, much deadlier on it. They were just badasses, and they have paid an enormous price, not to mention the cost of 300,000 dead, something along those lines. Nobody really knows. All of Ukraine is in ruins, but the number of dead and heartbroken families in Russia is unbelievable. He's destroyed his country on the basis of what he thought was going to be a cakewalk, and there you go. So the J.R. Gold says, didn't the people of Donbass prefer to be part of Russia by like 80%? Yes, that's after those are the people behind the Russian lines, so you can't really tell that it's very difficult to tell what the legitimacy of that is. But there's no question that there's a significant amount of people in the Donbass and other disputed regions in the east of Ukraine that feel more Russian than not. And Crimea, the Crimean Peninsula was Russian for, back to the Ottoman Empire, and was given to Ukraine as an SSR by Khrushchev, who just unilaterally just gave it to him. The Crimea has always been Russian and not Ukrainian. So look, it's a bloody mess, and there's no moral. No one is unbesmirched, in terms of their position. It's just got to end. It's just a miserable, horrible bloodbath, and it's got to be. It really needs to come to an end. I would like to see it end on a personal level because of the sanctions against my family members. I send money to my relatives in Russia because things are so tough there, and it's used to be I could just Western Union money, but that ended with the invasion of Ukraine. We have to do it now by knowing people in Los Angeles who are Russians who also have bank accounts in Russia, and we can pay them American money in America, and then they just pay Russian money in Russia, and no money actually travels from the U.S. to Russia. It's just a transaction here and a transaction there, so nothing's actually crossing the borders. Eric Blake wants to know, geez, Bill, what do you think after seeing the decimation of Russia's military? Suppose Emperor Xi sees this as an opportunity to invade Siberia. Would Russia be able to defend against a Chinese invasion? Yes. What would happen? What would happen to the Chinese army? If Russia proper was invaded, this whole thing would completely switch, and there wouldn't be Russian men running away from Russia. They'd be running back to Russia. So anybody can see that that's a pretty unlikely event. The question is Taiwan, is China going to do anything with Taiwan? And a lot of experts think that they will. And then the question is, if that happens, what's the position of the U.S.? I think, especially given that the only chips in the world, the best chips in the world, are made in Taiwan. I think it's in the interest of world peace, and I think it's in the interest of the United States. I think it's in the U.S. national interest to basically make the same kind of guarantee that we made when the missiles were in Cuba. Just I think. I just think that's. I think it's in our national interest to stop the invasion of Taiwan, and I think a statement saying that an attack on Taiwan would be that Taiwan, this one China policy is ridiculous, and if Trump really wants to piss off China, he could basically say. No, there is the People's Republic of China, and then there's the Chinese, the Republic of Taiwan, and Taiwan is an ally of the United States, and there you go. Eric wants to know, could we create an Iron Dome for Taiwan? You could create an Iron Dome system for Taiwan, but the problem isn't intercepting missiles. The problem is intercepting hundreds or thousands of missiles. This is what I was talking about when we talked about the offense versus the defense. Was it last week, maybe? That we can shoot down missiles. We just can't shoot down hundreds of them. And China is the world's leading manufacturer. They make their weapons are I think the second best in the world, and they are able to make a lot of them, and they don't have to ship them. They don't have to put them on. Taiwan is in range from the Chinese shoreline. I mean, China can just mass thousands or tens of thousands of missiles on the shore, and Taiwan is in range. So if China wants to make that move, then China essentially just wipes the above ground uh, uh, defense installations off the map. It can wipe China can wipe Taiwan's airfields off the map. Um, China can just launch a missile saturation missile attack that just knocks out virtually every military target of any size. So Taiwan is smart to disperse its troops. The real see here's the thing that China couldn't do a thing about. They've got across what is it 100 miles of ocean, something like that. Um, the the Normandy invasion was, I don't know what it was to Normandy. It's 20 miles across Calais, so let's say 40 or 50. So it's probably 2 or 3 times the distance, and there is no there is no they're going to need a lot more men. They're going to have to take a lot more men a lot further. The best defense for Taiwan is a submarine defense. If you have submarines, then the Taiwanese invasion ends. You just ends. And Alex Hooper in Twitch says it has to be done at a certain time of year because of the suitable water conditions, weather conditions, all the rest of it. Um, China, this is China's obsession, and I don't know. Certainly, if the U.S. were in it, I don't think their invasion would succeed. Um, if they had the sea power to get enough troops ashore, then the question is, would the Taiwanese be able to stop them on the ground? You got to figure that the Chinese missile attack would take out the Taiwanese air bases. This would be the first target for Chinese parachutists for airborne troops, and that the first units to land on the beaches would make a major effort to break out and control at least one airfield. If they got one airfield, they can start airlifting supplies in. But, the defense has such an advantage, and it's so, and this is this is the main thing. China, and you can't put a price on this. China has zero amphibious experience, zero, and to lead with the biggest amphibious operation in history, with zero experience, is really bringing lots and lots of variables into the mix. By the time we got to Okinawa, we'd done it, what, 7, 8, 9 times? Probably more than that. When you count all of the islands we went to, it's probably closer to 20. But we'd had major experience, starting with Guadalcanal and Peleliu and Tarawa, and Iwo, Saipan, Guam. We'd really gotten the hang of it. And I think the smartest play for Taiwan is to disperse their defense, just disperse the living daylights out of it, camouflage all of their anti-ship missiles, get them off of the beaches, hide them, and let China launch its missile barrage, bury them, but basically keep enough anti-ship missiles in reserve so that once China launches that first missile attack to take out Taiwanese defenses, there's enough missiles remaining to be able to do the transports. Air Techie says the PLA has been practicing amphibious assaults for 20 years, and I get that, Techie. I'm not trying to take anything away from that, but that one of the things that we learned the hard way in the Pacific was is that every plan falls apart the minute it comes in contact with the enemy, and there's a big difference between training for an amphibious assault and having done 15 of them prior to Okinawa. I'm a big student of the U.S. Navy in World War II, and it took us 3 years to really learn how to do this the right way. And even then, we lost 15,000 killed on Okinawa. Um, I don't know. I get the feeling if they try it, it will be the same outcome as Putin's invasion of the Ukraine. They may or may not succeed, but even if they do succeed, they'll be so broken by it that. And you're getting to the point now where if you really look at young Chinese people, like Gen Z Chinese people, which are now fighting age, these are now you're starting to look at the troops. They don't want to go into the Army or the Navy, and they have no desire to fight for their country, and they feel like they have been abandoned by Chinese society. All of these Gen Z Chinese kids are coming out of these colleges with engineering degrees, and there's no jobs for them. They're getting jobs as delivering food, and 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 so they feel cheated, and there's um, an entire phenomenon going on right now with Gen Z in China, which they're calling lying down. And what they're basically saying is, oh, Story Monster with the super chat just says, "Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Story Monster. It's very kind." What this lying down movement is basically is they're saying we're not planning on having well-paying jobs. We're not planning on buying houses. We're not planning on buying apartments. We're not doing it. We don't believe in this culture anymore. We've been told that all we had to do was work and go to college, and if we went to college and did all this work, then we would get high-paying jobs and we'd be able to buy all these things. But it's just not true. So screw you. We're all going to lie down. We're gonna work for 400 yuan a week, and just enough to pay for a cheap apartment. And we're not even into dating, marriage, all that stuff. Forget it. No. So Eric Blake says, "Dare we hope these youngsters feel cheated may lead to an overthrow of Emperor Xi?" I don't even think they're motivated to overthrow him. I just think they're so motivated to not do anything that they're simply not. They're not joining the army. I don't remember what the conscription policy is for China. I wouldn't be surprised if it was although I don't think it is universal conscription. I honestly don't know, but they are not. Yeah, the Ref Ryan says they are beyond checked out. They're checked out, and every day that goes by, that older generation, that was willing to fight for China is getting older and older and older. Every day and year that goes by, the quality of Chinese troops declines. And I don't know. And they don't. My studies of Chinese culture are that the Chinese are taught to hate Americans, and they're taught to loathe the Japanese. And I haven't seen any evidence. They can't completely demonize Taiwan because the entire Chinese position is that these are Chinese people, that they're Chinese citizens. So I don't know, but just the chip. I still can't believe that the best chips in the world are made in Taiwan and not in the U.S. And frankly, of all the national security risks in the world in terms of trade, this is number one. Whatever we have to do to bring state of the art chip making back to the U.S., even if it's $1 trillion investment, we need to make it. Hello, Veronica. Nice to see you. Kind of you to say. Yeah, and not only does China have to worry about this, but if China invades Taiwan, then that not only gets the attention of the U.S., it also gets the attention of Japan, gets the attention of Korea, gets the attention of the Philippines, all of this stuff. So, there you go. So, I don't know what to say about that. Castellan says Apple's $500 billion U.S. investment may do that. I had heard that they'd made a $500 billion investment. I did not know what it was in. But if it's in chip making, then that's great. Eric Mersha says China has a lot of rare earth metals needed for chips. I thought that, hey Chris, I thought that China had a dearth of rare earth. And one of the reasons why they're making such investments in Africa is to basically, get it out of there. Yes, Japan's starting to rebuild its navy, says Eric, and one of the big equalizers is the F-35. Man, that F-35, the vertical takeoff and landing F-35, can take off of the small, kind of like the amphibious landing carriers that we have. Japanese carriers can probably take off, put 8 or 11 or 12 F-35s on a deck, and they've got a bunch of these sort of pocket carriers, and all of a sudden with the F-35, that becomes a genuine threat to Chinese forces, because they can penetrate Chinese air defenses and naval defenses and so on. So it's a complex thing. I'm going to go ahead to the forum now, though, and see what's shaking over there. Let's go up to the lab and see what's on the slab. I see you quiver with anticipation. Trinity Waters, good evening from Oregon. Bill, hello, Trinity. From one communist state to another, I salute you. Marisha Dark says, anyone see Trump's gold card idea? If we got 7 million of those, we could pay off the entire federal debt. Does that math work? 7 million times, it's $5 million, right? The idea is that for $5 million, we'll let you, we'll give you, you just get to move in. $3.5 times 10 to the 13th. That's a lot of money. See, that's just such a bloody brilliant idea. It's just so bloody freaking, I hadn't done the math on it. And to be honest with you, I heard about the gold card idea, but I didn't know what it was. If you can pony up $5 million, you have to be relatively successful. At the very least, you know how to read. I didn't realize the numbers were that remarkable. Plus, they come over and they bring jobs. Felix Ruber says to get 5 million in the second and third worlds, you have to be awful. Is that who we want for cash? No, I don't think. First of all, I don't think it's like an automatic 5 million. I think there are very, 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 very few third world millionaires. We're talking about French citizens, German citizens, Russian citizens. Now Russia's got a problem with having been a kleptocracy, so there's but certainly there are a lot of legitimate businessmen there too. But Scandinavian businessmen, South American citizens who have, if you can write a $5 million check. Look, let me just say this: none of the people that are coming over the border in caravans are able to write $5 million checks. So there's an awful. They said that would be vetted. It's not automatic. Yes, I mean, I think it's potentially brilliant, and I hadn't realized that the numbers were that crazy big. But yeah, pay off the whole debt. Marusha says Secretary of Commerce said they'd be vetted for loyalty to America. Well, then I say sign them up, man. And by the way, Pete Rossi says no welfare. If you've got $5 million to spend, and you come to America, I have a pretty good idea which political party you're going to be voting for. I think you're going to be voting for the party that's in favor of lower taxes. That's 5 million or 7 million Republicans. 7 million Republicans. Our Grosses would still like to see the citizenship test be a part of that. I think that goes without saying. I wouldn't accept it otherwise. Trump said over 10 million sold would pay off the whole debt with 15 trillion left over. God. And 10 million people worldwide is nothing. Nothing. I cannot believe that no one thought of this earlier. Honestly, that is Yes, well, they're saying they're going to vet them for loyalty to America. So let's just say that's it. Plus, Marisha says the gold card is an automatic citizenship. It's $5 million for an automatic green card. Jackal Hooligan says people with that kind of money aren't loyal to any country. I don't know if I agree with that. Um, I think you could find, I think you could find 10 million people around the world who could number one come up with that kind of money, and who number two really would love to live in America and would become good citizens. And you just bet the hell out of them. You better bet the hell out of them. And I bet you 9 out of 10 of them would be Republicans. That's that's just I mean, just the potential of that. Just, I mean, the potential to. I mean, really, seriously, that gives you the potential to eliminate the national debt in a year. Balanced budget. That's insane. It's insanely brilliant. Yes, Steve Hoover says it's a brilliant idea. Once again, thinking outside the box. Um, well, I mean, at the very least, I like this better than increasing the income tax and making anyway. Grog Bless said he just Googled it and said that there are about 58 million millionaires in the world. And how many do we need? 10? That's a significant percentage. That's. John Eden says USA is not the first to do this. You can buy citizenship in numerous countries. I agree with Joel Eichner on this, though. If you're going to immigrate to America, you leave your flag behind. Airtechie says there are 18, I guess there are 18 million millionaires in the U.S. Yeah, it should be at least that much, I would think. Oh, that's a good point. Maltz42 says half of that 58 million of the millionaires in the world are already in North America. Yeah, that's right. Most of the millionaires in the world are in America, I would think. Although a significant number of them are in China now, too. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, sorry about that. All right, let's see what we got. We got an Eric Blake. We got a George Freeland, Road Runner. We got a Road Rider. Guy Balo, Mercer Dark, Capital G Geek, Eric Blake. And I can do those. All right, here we go. We got two Eric Blakes. Let's see which one. I'm going to do the first one, Eric. I don't know if I'll be able to do the second one, but I'll definitely do the first one because it's a tough question. All right, so starting with Eric Blake. So, Bill, in light of the OnlyFans issue and its effects on women, do you stand by your earlier position with Clavin that prostitution should be legal? I'm not aware that I ever said I thought prostitution should be legal. I'm certainly never championed the idea that prostitution should be legal. This is a naughty problem, actually. It's a naughty problem and a naughty problem. The naughty part of it is the naughty the the difficult part of the problem is let me lay it out here. On one hand is the kind of libertarian argument that is that, well, here, the referent says, of course, it should be illegal. I think he maybe meant to say legal. If you're a consensual adult making a transaction with another consensual adult and are completely responsible and accountable for your actions and behavior and decision making, then it should be allowed. That is really that is the essence of the kind of libertarian argument. But the question is, what happens? So that's the swing your fist argument. What about the where it hits my nose part of the argument? The sad fact of the matter is that prostitution is not exclusively consenting adults making contracts with each other for mutual gain. There is that's kind of call girl prostitution, and there's no way to really differentiate the two. There's prostitution is a spectrum, and it goes from $10,000 for a night with me, supermodel kind of thing, or 20 or whatever, all the way down to girls turning tricks on street corners, and there's no break point in that continuity spectrum. There's no place where you can say yes this but not that. It just works its way down. Like for example, Roadrunner points out that prostitution is legal in Nevada, just not in Vegas. There's just a number of counties where it's legal, and there are obviously bordellos that are legal bordellos. Now take this is the reason I bring this up is because it's an interesting example. In the areas of Nevada where prostitution is legal, it's only if I understand correctly, it's legal in licensed bordellos, and those girls are tested either weekly or daily, and there's security on site, and there's all of the things that take it up to the level of kind of high level call girl interactions where you've got a guy with a lot of money. You're not likely to see a lot of violence if you're talking about $5,000 a session escort kind of thing or higher. But that's not where the problem is. The problem is multiple problems, and the biggest problem is the whole consensual thing. There are prostitutes who choose to be prostitutes, and just like the OnlyFans girls, but there's an awful lot of women out there that either didn't choose it or have no other option, and their lives are horrible and miserable. And the fact that prostitution is illegal suppresses prostitution. So let's just start with that premise, okay? There's no question that having prostitution being illegal suppresses prostitution. If you make it legal, you will see more of it. Is anybody going to argue with that? Now, I'm not going to talk about, I'll eventually get to things like, well, you'll see more of it, but it may be, better. But honestly, if you eliminate the speed limit, you're going to see more speeding. Does anybody think that if they eliminated speed limits, the speed would go down? I don't see it. If they eliminated the speed limit, people would drive faster. If they made prostitution legal, there would be more prostitutes. So, is more prostitution in society a good thing? I don't think it is. This is the counter argument. Not only does it bring a lot of venereal diseases and so on, especially at the lower levels, it also brings in a lot of associated crime. I mean, at least now that may be a function of it being illegal, but in areas where the street prostitution is the highest, usually are the highest crime neighborhoods. In fact, that's a definite, practically a one-to-one correlation. You don't see lots and lots of streetwalkers in Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills. In fact, you don't see any. Although I wouldn't be surprised if a third of the people you see on the streets of Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills are prostitutes, one short or another. They're certainly not walking up to cars and chatting up the drivers. So, so it's a complex issue. I think probably, I don't recall saying Sherman Oaks. Oh, Sherman Oaks is just hooker heaven. Um, I don't think. See, I'm not in favor of legalizing uh, drugs either. Marijuana's been decriminalized in California for such a long time. I mean, you see far more. There are more marijuana stores in Los Angeles than any other kind um, of outlets. Um, Marusha says we tried this experiment with prohibition. It failed. The war on drugs failed. Well, what we don't know is we don't know we don't have a control. In other words, if if we were to make all drugs legal, we don't know what would happen to our society. You can say that the war on drugs has failed because there's still drug use, but ultimately, we don't know what the world would look like if cocaine and heroin and all of this other stuff was legal. Marusha says Netherlands is the control. I'm not. I don't think Netherlands is what we're looking for. Um, the reference says Jordan Peterson talked about this, and the alternative to curing this problem is worse than the problem in the first place. Leave it up to the states. I got to tell you, I think that probably leaving it up to states is probably the best of all of the bad solutions. Let me, I'll give you my personal take on this, okay? My personal take on this is I think if you legalize prostitution, you get more prostitution. And I don't think prostitution is good for society. I don't think it's good for the prostitutes. So I'd be against it. Um, in the same way that, I think there's certainly more marijuana use than there used to be, and people say, oh, it's not as bad as alcohol and all the rest of it, and that's fine, and I don't have an axe to grind about the pot issue. But I don't know anybody who smokes a ton of dope that I really admire. Um, and Gerald Stewart says sex and drugs are totally different things. Yep, and so is rock and roll. Um, I'm just gonna come down with well, first I'm gonna come down with my personal opinion. I think that it's damaging and immoral, and it's destructive, so I'm against it. And so that means I can't really be in favor of legalizing prostitution. It's going to be the Democrat rallying cry in the near future. It's already uh, their slogan is "Sex work is real work." It's like, okay, I think the girls that are doing OnlyFans now, some of them are making millions of dollars a year, and some of them are making tens of millions of dollars a year. Um, uh, I don't think the OnlyFans girls are going to have good outcomes in the future. Um, I just don't think they do. The ultimate question here is just because I don't agree with it doesn't mean I have a right to tell other people not to do it. This is a tough issue because um, because there is harm if society is harmed. I mean, I live in society, and if society is harmed, then that harms me. I'm just working through this one, frankly. Um, Tyler Marcus says we decriminalized hard drugs here in Oregon, and it wasn't great. We illegalized it just recently. I kind of think, there's that. Uh, I don't know the answer to this one. And since I don't know the answer, I default to freedom, you know? Vorpal's Bunny Revenge says, I like society. I keep all my stuff there. Um, So I think probably my position on this would be, while I have serious, serious concerns about it, I don't feel like, in the end, I don't know if that's a cop out either. I got to tell you, man, I'm just kind of on the fence on this one. Um, Gerald Stewart says well regulated sex work is crime free. Yes, it's the well regulated part. Now, the argument is if you legalize prostitution, then that means prostitutes can, like street prostitutes, can call the cops. And they don't need pimps and so on. And that may be true. I guess the only real answer is to give it a try. And that's, to me, says let the states handle this. That's the seems to be the least risky pathway. Let the states deal with this, and then let the laboratory of experience come back with some kind of a verdict or some kind of evidence. Andrew says Nevada has legal brothels, so there's one data point. Yeah, that's that's fine. A Caledon Society says you're still degrading humanity even if it is well regulated. I agree with that too. Um, so I'm just gonna have to take a powder on that one. Clavin is in favor of it being legal. Clavin is a moral man. We're getting great arguments on both sides here. Reason to Right says no one's body was ever meant to be for sale. I really kind of agree. The counter argument to that is, if you don't own your body, what do you own? So this is one of those cases where there's, it's kind of like the difference between doing the right thing and the smart thing. Um, I'm against it, and I think I don't know, man. I don't know. It would be interesting. The like I said, the higher end stuff, like the regulated brothels or the whole call girl escort thing, is really comes down to largely two consenting adults sort of thing. The question is, if it was legalized, what would it do to like street level prostitution? And it may give prostitutes a chance to be able to go to law enforcement rather than hide from law enforcement. Um, Nushi Dark says my problem with making vices illegal is you criminalizing people for having addictions, which just seems effed up. But at the same time, if you if you eliminate speed limits, you get more speeding. I think I think really this is an issue that's we've been thinking about it like as a legal issue. Really needs to be more of a moral issue. This is kind of a theme about this idea of this golden age is a golden age is great, um, but does the citizenry have the fundamental reserves of virtue to maintain it? And I don't know. I don't know. I think we'll have to see. Someone who come with a super chat says the problem with decriminalization of drugs in Oregon is that they didn't set up the same programs as Portugal to let people clean, to get people clean. Program resulted in over 93% less addiction rates within 3 years. Well, now that is a profoundly good data point. Um, well, I'm not gonna pick that bone. I'm just gonna move on. Um, George Freeland, is it time to classify Reddit as a terrorist organization? Time and past time. Um, what's your reasoning here? While the most egregious threats are being taken down and investigated, the amount of hate for Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Tesla customers in parts of Reddit is somewhat alarming. Yes, much of Reddit is somewhat alarming. Um, Whether Reddit's executives get to claim free speech protections would seem to depend on whether they can fairly claim to be a neutral platform. They allowed radical leftists to capture the moderator roles on dozens of top general interest and mainstream hobby subreddits, which has helped cultivate this echo chamber. Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit because it is really tending very left wing, and I actually got kicked off of Reddit because I came to the defense of Mike Rowe uh, more enthusiastically than they liked. So Reddit is just a it's just a hole, and they can they can just have it. The nice thing about it, I don't think they need to be called a terrorist organization. I do think anybody who's making physical threats needs to be investigated by the FBI or the Secret Service, and prosecuted for that. If you are making a legitimate, credible threat against either Trump or anybody else, you don't get to do that. You don't get to threaten people's lives in a credible manner. So I think we just leave them to their own to wallow in their own crapulence, George. That seems to me to be the best answer there for that. Roadrunner. Greetings, friend Bill. Hello, Roadrunner. With all the corruption, fraud, waste, and abuse that DOGE has uncovered, 53 billion as of when this question was posted. It's well above that now, I think. When will we start seeing people being held accountable? Without accountability, we all know there will never be any real change. Well, this is the pattern that seems to be the case. I mean, going forward into this glorious golden age of ours, before you can prosecute a crime, you have to uncover a crime, which means that Pam Bondi is going to be walking behind Elon Musk. Technically speaking, the procession is Elon Musk followed by Kash Patel followed by Pam Bondi. So first you have to uncover the wrongdoing. That's DOGE's job. Then you have to investigate it and determine whether or not there's been criminal activity or just plain moral turpitude. That's Cash's job, and then when you find criminal activity, you have to throw the full weight of the law against them, which is Pam Bondi's job, and it takes a while for that to happen. So, I think what I'm trying to say here is that the prosecution phase is not late. Things seem to be going very quickly. So right now we've got to investigate after discover, and so we're in the investigation phase. Kash Patel's only been approved for a week, so I don't feel like we're slowing down or losing momentum or accountability. Let's just not forget that the accountability part, the prosecutions and stuff happens at the end of the procedure, not at the beginning. So there you go. Marisha Dark says, "Did you see the letter that Pam sent to Kash Patel?" I did not. Let me send a link to it. Just read this real quick. Sung Wukong for Super Chat says, "With Sex Works, Barnes, a lawyer made a good argument, not about it specifically, but saying our laws shouldn't be seen as a reflection of our virtues, but tools to get a desired result." I disagree completely. I think that our laws are a direct reflection of our virtues. And if you look at them just as tools to get a desired result without any morality attached to it, then you've got an instruction manual. Let me see this letter here because this looks like it's interesting. Give me one moment. I'll read it out loud. Attorney General Pam Bondi demanded the full release of files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in a Thursday letter to FBI Director Kash Patel. Quote, "By 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, that's tomorrow, The FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, audio, and video recordings and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his Diarets? Never seen that word before. Regardless of how much information was obtained, Bondi wrote. There will be no withholdings or limitations to my or your access. The Department of Justice will ensure that any public disclosure of these files will be done in a manner to protect the privacy of victims and in accordance with law, as I have done my entire career as a prosecutor. Notice she says to protect the privacy of victims and not the privacy of the perpetrators. That's an important distinction. That's a really important distinction. Bondi said her early request resulted in the surfacing of 200 pages that included flight logs, Epstein's lists of contacts, and a list of victims' names and phone numbers. However, she questioned if the report provided the full scope of the information requested. In her letter, she requested an investigation into why her original order seeking data on Epstein's relations were not fulfilled. Well, it's because Kash Patel wasn't director of the FBI, probably. You will deliver to me a comprehensive report of your findings and proposed personnel action within 14 days, Bondi said of her directive to launch an investigation. Well, damn, man, that sounds like she means frickin' business. I want him tomorrow. You have 2 weeks to give me a comprehensive report and propose personnel action. In other words, it sounds to me, if I got this correctly, that Bondi is saying that I asked for the information on the files. I didn't get anything like all of the information on the files, and now you've got 2 weeks to tell me who the people were that didn't give me all the information on the files so I can fire them. I'm getting a thrill run up my leg. I'm telling you, man. It's starting to feel like an actual people's government. It's actually starting to feel like government of the people. That's just freaking amazing. Absolutely amazing. Wow. Yes, you will. And that's tomorrow morning. Crazy. That's great. So there's your accountability in action for you there, Roadrunner. I think it looks good to me. Road your hot mic this week was honest and from the heart. Thanks. No question tonight at ease. Thank you very much. That was kind. I have enormous respect for Dan Bongino. It's easy when you really passionately believe in something. Last minute edit. What tools does Kash or Dan Bongino have if we discover a very large percentage of the FBI is dirty and will not comply with any orders from Director Patel or Pam Bondi or the President? National Guard is in control of the states, and the President can't just order SEAL Team 6 to shut down the Southern District of New York FBI's field office and lock the doors. Impossible? Who muscles the nation's top cops? Well, that's a great question. So much for at ease. I think we can all agree that it's better to have nobody than somebody who's working against you, right? People will say, well, you can't just fire the whole FBI. Well, I don't think you have to fire everybody, but if it turns out you find that the FBI is working against you, it's better to have no FBI agents than destructive FBI agents. That seems to make logical sense. Can we agree on that? So I think you do what Reagan did with the air traffic control situation. You immediately fire the people who are working against the interests of the United States of America because they've decided that they know what's better for the American people than the American people do. Get rid of those guys, fire them, investigate them downstream, and if they've broken the law, then you charge them. But that can come later. Right now, just fire them, and then I think what you would probably want to do, I think the pool that you would recruit from is, I think there are a lot, in fact, I know there are a lot of police officers who retired early because they simply couldn't stand all of the left-wing, directives that were coming down from various city police chiefs. So I would go looking at, immediately go to retired police officers, high-level police officers, investigators, detectives, and so on. And start bringing them into the FBI on a sort of a Band-Aid basis. And if they're working, great, keep them. If they're not, at least you're filling the positions. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Thanks for that, Roadrunner. That's really cool. I saw that earlier actually. Um, that's where I would go. I would go right to to retired police officers, and I think you'd get a lot of them. I think there's a lot of law enforcement, a lot of crime fighters who've left crime fighting because they don't believe the system is on their side anymore. Um, but um, but if you were to make a call for them, because they're talking about bringing back, and I've been calling for this for years. Anybody who left the military because they couldn't take it, the DEI and the wokeness, can come back and we'll give you your back pay. I think that's brilliant, brilliant. If I do say so myself, because I've been calling for that for 4 years, and I think that's where you go for your FBI replacements. I mean, most of these people know how to do the job. They know how to investigate, and if they quit because of anti wokeness, that kind of means they're pro American. Um, so there you go. And Shrewdly Done on YouTube says that Dan Bongino would be an excellent recruiter. He would be an excellent recruiter. Just the fact that he's there is a recruitment of police officers. I mean, that's got to inspire police officers around the country. Um, and there you go. Guy Balo and Murshidar, capital G Geek. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to get to the second Eric tonight, so that's gonna go that way. Guy Balo, greetings, Bill. With President Trump and Elon Musk being the two best examples of super rich Americans who actually love and want what's best for America and Americans, do you believe that some of these other wealthy people who are starting to give up on DEI and some of the other left-wing BS are actually coming around to our way of thinking, or is it purely financial? The farther left they go, the more money they lose. I'm of the opinion that people such as Zuckerberg and Bezos are in the same category as Soros and Gates, in that they have no morals or integrity and everything is about the almighty dollar. Thoughts? One nice thing about the Epstein thing would be I would like to see Bill Gates go down. And he seems to be really, really bad man. Um, uh, so, you know, billionaires are different than people. There's just a standard deviation of people's political opinions, and I think there's something about tech that makes people want to lean left because left is more totalitarian, and they like the idea of controlling things because things are very easy to in the computer world, it's all about controlling and directing data, and I think people like um, I think people like um, the idea of being able to control things. I think that's one of the things that you see from these tech billionaires is that they think that people are nothing really more than data points, and have come out and said so directly in that astonishing Google document called uh, the Selfish Ledger. Really amazingly evil, probably the most evil thing I've ever seen. Um, so one of the unknowns here is there's a subterranean force at work here, and that is BlackRock and other super large capital firms. I don't know why BlackRock is determined to be as socialist as possible, but they are. All of these DEI initiatives are usually put into place in order to comply and get their social credit score high enough so that the big like BlackRock will do business with them. So there's a financial incentive for them to go to the left that may not comport with their own personal feelings. This is why the NFL takes a knee at halftime shows, and why Hollywood makes anti-American movies. They don't do it because they're losing money. They're doing it because they're making money behind the scenes with these enormous companies like BlackRock that own them outright in many cases. So it's not just a question of the morality and the money, as there are vast kind of subterranean rivers that are flowing in a certain direction, and those rivers are changing course. Um, and and then that's when we'll really know that the deep state is in trouble is when you start seeing people going after not just the federal government, but the actions of some of these equity firms that are not just lending money to people in order to make money. That's perfectly fine. That are trying to social engineer the world through strong arm tactics on who gets money and at what rate and so on. Hopefully that'll get you there, most of it anyway, Guy. Risha Dark, topic, language of liberty. I'm a huge Trump fan, as you may well know, and believe very strongly that the actions speak louder than words, so practically speaking, this might not be an issue. However, we both understand the power value of rhetoric, so I'd like to know what you think about this observation. Okay. We hear Trump talk all the time about making the country rich, making it strong, making it safe. He talks about God and love and family, all very good things, but apart from occasionally mentioning free speech, I hardly ever hear him use the words freedom and liberty. He was recently asked to say what he thinks the essence of America is. He mentioned strength, peace, love, but I was disheartened that freedom wasn't on the list. Most people would probably describe the essence of America as being individual human freedom above all else, or at least somewhere in the top three. Again, actions versus words, but have you noticed this as well, and what are your thoughts from a messaging perspective? I haven't really noticed it. I think Donald Trump has led arguably the freest life of anybody I can think of. And has always, it may just be a question he doesn't talk about freedom because he is so free. He's done what he wants to do. He's got enough money to do what he wants to do, and he's taken the hits for it and given back better than he's taken. So Donald Trump is not a theoretical guy. Liberty is a term that is not. Liberty is an archaic term. I know we don't like to hear that, but it is. If you hear anybody mentioning liberty, you're talking about people who are referring to constitutional ideals. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, nobody leans out the window and says, "How dare you, impinge upon my liberty?" Freedom is a very broadly defined word. And has been applied in ways that that's why Marusha says, that's why I said freedom and not liberty. You said both, Marusha. I wouldn't be referring to liberty if you hadn't mentioned it. I'm not concerned about Donald Trump's commitment to free speech. We've seen Trump suppress more than anybody, and he's had his actual speech suppressed in ways that most of us can't even imagine. I heard him deal with a reporter yesterday or 2 days ago. Somebody asked him about, well, aren't you targeting something? And Trump just cut him off and say, hey, listen, don't talk to me about targeting. Nobody's been targeted like me. I've been targeted for 4 years as president. For the year before that, I was targeted. I was 4 years targeted in the 4 years of the Biden administration. I've been legally targeted. I've been, personally targeted. Don't talk to me about targeting. I kind of get that same kind of vibe about freedom. He is. It's not. I'm really just kind of a meta answer to this. Our freedoms are not really under assault here. I know that sounds counterintuitive, and it cause people to just jump up and start howling at the moon. But your personal ability to do what you want to do is not under direct threat right now. What's under threat is the potential to have your freedom restricted by an all-powerful state, and he is going after. He is going after the only entity that can actually restrict Americans' actual freedom, and that is not foreign powers or anything else. That's our own government. So I'm not concerned about it, and I'm certainly not worried about his ethics. He has shown an unbelievable propensity and an inclination to attack the enemy of freedom, which is the out of state U.S. government, out of control U.S. government, anti-citizen, deep state U.S. government, and he's going at that hammer and tongs, and I just couldn't be happier. So I'm with this guy all the way, and I know you are too. I'm just saying it's not the fact that he's not talking about theoreticals doesn't bother me. So we'll see. Joseph Belinsky says we have 54 more days in the first 100 days, so we're not even past the first 100 days yet. He's done more in the first 2 weeks than most presidents do in 4 years or 8 years. I couldn't believe it. And Alex Hooper says never would have happened if he hadn't, quote, lost, unquote, in 2020. I agree. We've talked about that many times on this show. I think history will show that was the best thing that happened to America, and the worst thing that happened to enemies of America was when they stole the 2020 election. I think that is going to end up being, it'll be their Pearl Harbor. They're the Japanese. That was their Pearl Harbor. Sneak attack, everything in ruins and flames, and all they have done is awaken a sleeping giant and filled him with a terrible resolve. Last one for the night, Capital G Geek. Greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. It's the swampiest place. It gets swampier every single day. The Gelman amnesia effect is when you see a news article on a topic you're familiar with and the author gets it completely wrong. Yes. Who was it who talked about this? Was it Peter Benchley? It was one of these authors. You then turn the page and you think about you think you're reading an accurate story on a subject that you don't know about. The likelihood that both are completely wrong. Yes. So the argument is you read an article about something you know, or maybe it was something you saw, witnessed with your own eyes. You read the news article, you say it was nothing like that, and nothing like that at all. And then you go to the next news article, Michael Crichton, and then you assume that, the reporting on the next article is 100% accurate, when in point of fact, the reporting on none of it is accurate. Can we apply that to the government corruption and propaganda that's now being exposed? Does Walter Duranty prove that the press has always been lying to us? USS Liberty, Gulf of Tonkin. Yes, if they say the sky is blue, we shouldn't reflexively say it's not, but we should check just to make sure. And it looks like Epstein's list might be out in time for the award shows. Oh boy, I hadn't thought about that. Oh my God. And it looks like Epstein's list might be out in time for the award shows. That might make them finally worth watching again. Wouldn't that be something? Oh man. I hadn't thought about that. I had not thought about that at all. Yeah. So, it goes to Bondi tomorrow. So presumably tomorrow Bondi gets all of the stuff. And then I really liked that letter. She said, we're not going to just release everything. I'm just going to dump it. We're going to do it in concert with established legal procedures for protecting the names and identities of the victims, as I have done throughout my entire career as a prosecutor. That woman is in charge, man, and I just love it. I freaking love it. I am so impressed with that tone. You will give to me by tomorrow morning all of the files. Sounds like she's kind of bitching out cash, but she's not. She's basically saying, you are now the director of the FBI. The FBI did not comply with me in the past, and this is going to come to an end. I want all the files on my desk by tomorrow morning, and you have 2 weeks to find out who's responsible for me not getting them when I asked for them the first time. Sweet. Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. So as far as the Gelman amnesia effect, yes, you should be skeptical of everything that you read in the news, and you should be skeptical. And the higher up it comes, the more skeptical you should be. One of the things that these AI images, AI videos, AI chatbots, all the rest of this stuff is, we are about to enter an age. We're already in the age, but we're not awash in it yet. We certainly got we're well past our toes, and we're probably up to our knees or practically our hips in it. But we're rapidly approaching the time when we will no longer be able to tell what is true just using our own eyes. Used to be Pixar, it didn't happen. Now we've got picks to show we're very close to having the ability to create any kind of reality that comes to us through media. And I ran this to its logical conclusion, or at least one of its logical conclusions, and I came to realize that it's one of the qualities of the alphas may be that as this continues, or whoever comes after, I guess they'll be the betas, but somewhere down the line, if you the only thing that they can manipulate is the stuff that comes through this, right? This is the only thing they can manipulate. They cannot manipulate what you see with your own eyes, and they can't manipulate what you tell to the people who are close to you. It's entirely possible that that the ability to create the illusion of truth through tech media might be the end of social media. In other words, we are rapidly approaching the point where you can't trust anything you see on the media or social media, especially when you get into personal things like these filters that people are using to hide the way they really look and so on, and all these stories about people that go out on dates and the person pulls up and they don't even recognize them because of all the filters and the Photoshop and all the rest of the stuff they've done. So we may end up finding ourselves in a situation where the only thing that can be trusted, because people do need to trust things, is what they've seen with their own eyes or what they've heard from people who they personally know and trust. This could be a way to get back to the personal touch. You know, I really believe that's a possible outcome. So we'll see. Alex Cooper says until they start mapping our brains or sticking us with a Neuralink. Well, it would take some convincing for me to have one of those put in my head. I mentioned Neuralink before, and that is if it were a valve, that's one thing. If I could communicate into the Neuralink, that's one thing. But if it can communicate into me, and there's really no point in having it if it doesn't, then you have no idea what kind of power that will give people over people. I don't think I'll be putting a chip in my head, and I'll tell you this, it's exciting time. Technology is moving at incredible speeds. We are on the threshold of something monumental with the singularity of self-aware AI. AI is making my life much, much easier, just in simple things like Photoshop. I used to have to go to enormous trouble just to fill in, parts of the frame. Now I just draw a framer on it, and it just fills it in. So I like it's just exciting and interesting, and for the first time in the history of my life, I'm seeing upward trends around the board. My entire life has been nothing but slow slides downward, forever. So the big question is, if we fix the top first, will respect for law and order trickle down? And I suspect it will, because, as I said, I think that this government has trickled up from the law-abiding people of America. That's what I think is kind of happening. I might want to refine that more. The law-abiding people elected people to enforce the laws, and now the question is, will that rebound, will that echo work its way back down again and increase lawful behavior and increase virtue and reduce vice and crime? Well, we're going to find out. And the good news is we're probably going to find out pretty quick, because things are happening really fast around here. So hooray for that. Okay, I think that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Lounge. What do we got? That's a short show, 1 hour 44. But it's minimum viable product. That's all I care about. Oh, gosh. I've been doing the intermittent fasting thing, so I can go home now, but not get a bite to eat. And it seems to be working, and we'll see. Okay, this show is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com, who have kept things going, and we're going to get these story mechanics out and do a membership push. And if you're one of those people watching this and you haven't become a member, maybe if they issue these $5,000 checks, I might ask you for $100 out of that. We'll see. I guess we'll say goodnight to. I want to say goodnight to YouTube first. Thanks, YouTube. Thanks for being here. A lot of fun as always, and interesting discussions, heated conversations in the comment section. That's why we have comment sections, and you know, it's good to be able to talk about things and talk about adult things in adult ways. So there you go. Thanks again for being with us. Thanks to all of you. Hey, see, we had a heated conversation in the YouTube comment section, and now everybody's wishing each other good night with cheers and goodwill, and I'm just so proud of that. It's not the biggest crowd in the world, but it's the best, I think. And we're real glad you're all here. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you not on Monday. I will not be here Monday. I'll be a speaking event on Monday in Texas, but I'll be back next week for the Stratosphere Lounge. So until then, YouTube, we will see you next Thursday.